Routh is expected to face challenges as his trial moves forward. Judge Cannon has ruled that Routh cannot access any classified information, citing risks to U.S. national security.
What is that? What is submitted that's classified that might be a risk to national security? It's not relevant to this. Like, no one cares if you care about global issues. It's not relevant to your prosecution. You don't just get to submit a bunch of stuff to puff yourself up. It's got to be relevant and helpful to the tribunal. The attempted Trump assassin is trying a very interesting new tactic. His trial is right around the corner. Jury selection starts in less than a week, and he's representing himself, and he submitted this motion on his own. He fired his public defenders. They're standing back and standing by at the moment in case they need to jump in on this thing. But as trial inches closer, we got Ryan Routh, who's now submitting these motions on his own. He's writing these on a typewriter from prison, and don't know that it's going to work out all that well for him. But we're going to come back to this because this is a motion to exclude the prosecutions, and he also submitted another one that we'll take a look at right here, which is a motion to admit 3 other letters. He's talking about Putin, all sorts of crazy things. So we'll come back to that, but here is a little bit of background on this fella. You remember him is this guy, and Wokeness dug this back up for us, and this guy was making statements about Ukraine, flying over there, taking pictures with them, Ukrainian flag all over his chest, and very interested in this cause. Okay, here again. We're looking for families and homes and foreign exchange volunteers. This is the guy. He also said this.
Every day in my interactions with everybody, every one of us is responsible for the outcome of this war. Every one of us, by our actions and what we do. And, when I call back home and say, hey, I need $5 so I can, put enough money together to get a vest for a Ukrainian, and I get no response, I'm like, I'm not sure that the world is as wonderful as I once thought.
All right, so he's there and talking about, we got to go fight for Ukraine, die for Ukraine, whatever. Part of the, litany that we've heard a lot about. Here is where he got arrested on the day. Remember, he was at the golf course, and somebody said that they saw the sniper rifle poking through. And there's been a lot of people saying, man, the Secret Service was so amazing. They did such a good job since Trump didn't get shot. Like, well, the dude was still in the vicinity. Trump was rounding the corner. They had just failed in Butler, Pennsylvania, where Trump actually did get shot in the head. And now there was a second one that just came down after the fact. And what we're getting here from Susan Crabtree, she's reporting, she's like the Secret Service whisperer. She said, love Fox News's Kennedy. All right. But the statement just now that President Trump must be very happy with the Secret Service detail because one of them discovered the rifle peeking through the fence doesn't comport with the majority reaction in the Secret Service community. Routh should never have been allowed to lie in wait for 10 plus hours because the Secret Service should have swept the perimeter of the golf course, which was not done. The fact that one agent spotted Routh in the bushes was very lucky, but the U.S. Secret Service shouldn't have been depending on luck. They should have upped their prevention game, especially after Butler. Multiple Secret Service sources, retired agents, and those currently on the job have repeatedly said the same. There's been virtually no consequences for anybody in the Secret Service as a result of their massive failures. Now, there's also this report. Ryan Routh had a hearing today, and we're going to go through that. The government is also submitting their witnesses and their exhibits. But here's a report from Fox News on what was happening outside the courtroom.
Fox News alert now. Ryan Routh, the man accused of attempting to assassinate the president last year, is in court right now in Florida. It's his final pretrial hearing before jury selection next week, and he is apparently representing himself today. Routh is facing 5 federal charges, including attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate and a slew of weapons charges. Here's criminal defense attorney Donna Rotuno.
Given the fact that he has this long, extensive history, a mental health history, I am quite surprised that there have been no requests here to determine his fitness to stand trial, because I think if there's ever an issue coming back in an appeals court, that may be something that is risen. And I'm surprised that the public defenders that were originally assigned to this case did not raise that issue.
So our Dana Marie McNichol is live in Fort Pierce, just outside the federal courthouse now. Dana Marie, what's the latest?
Hi, Aisha. Well, Ryan Routh, as you just mentioned, is in court right now for that last hearing. He will be taking center stage after firing those public defenders last month. So here's what we could expect for the beginning of next week's trial. Ryan Routh will be in business attire after federal judge Eileen Cannon ordered the shackles be removed. Prosecutors raised concerns that he might wear political clothing. Routh is expected to face challenges as his trial moves forward. Judge Cannon has ruled that Routh cannot access any classified information, citing risks to U.S. national security. Although Routh dismissed his public defenders, Judge Cannon document is requiring the attorney.
What is that? What is submitted that's classified that might be a risk to national security?
To remain on standby for Routh to help with any legal advice when needed. Now, court documents paint a picture of Routh's bizarre antics before he attempted the assassination, but a motive remains unclear. Questions remain about Routh's international ties and why he was closely tracking the president's movements with several cell phones. Back in March, President Trump called for answers.
He had 6 cell phones. That's a lot of cell phones. And a couple of them had some strange markings on them.
And looking ahead to next week, Aisha, jury selection begins on Monday. The judge ordered partial sequestration for that jury to prevent any outside interference from.
All right, so trial coming soon, and we'll keep our eye on it. But here is what Ryan Routh is submitting. These came into court today, September 2nd, 2025, from the guy who's representing himself, who tried to take out Trump. So this is the first motion, not a real long substantive one. It says, this is my motion to exclude the prosecution's latest evidence and support for this request. It says to present new evidence 2 weeks before court when it has been almost a year for them to gather all they needed. Need I say more? It is absurd. The deadline has passed. If you would like to trade admitting evidence for my subpoena of that baboon, Donald Trump, bring that idiot on. It's a deal. If you do not want to trade for the dumb person, then give me all the others on my recent subpoena list. But, incorrectly spelled. I think a beatdown session would be more fun and entertaining for everyone. This guy is a criminal defendant in a case. He's got jury selection next week. Give me shackles and cuffs and let the old fat man give it his worst. We must beat down crime in America. Carpet is red, isn't it? No harm in blood. If I am housed at Fort Lucy, can it be in a far-off, quiet room? Can I have access to documents, phone, visitation email, and maybe a computer and printer or a fancy typewriter like this one? Some female strippers would be great too. Model parent, or perhaps a putting green so I can work on my putting. A golf joke. A round of golf with the racist pig. He wins, he can execute me. I win, I get his job. Sorry, Hillbilly Vance. Ryan Routh, inmate. All right, you're like, Rob, that dude's totally crazy. He's nuts. Not according to the courts. All right, so he's competent to stand trial, and it sounds like he's just over it, right? So that was Ryan Routh. Here is more. We got another motion from him from the prison. Motion to admit all 3 letters. Number 2. They say, Ryan says, the defendant, me, was not given an opportunity to respond to limine item number 5 on justification, as I'm sure you are aware. While one certainly cannot murder another simply because they are mental, R-word, or racist, sexist, egomaniac, selfish, greedy, power-hungry, and wish to overthrow our government, such murder should be reserved for, say, he says, Hitler, Putin, Xi, Assad, Lukashenko, Netanyahu, Maduro, Raul Castro, Erdogan, and Orban. Soon, Bukele, but not Kim yet. This guy's nuts. And all of the other selfish bastards that I forget. But Trump is a public figure, not a private citizen, so any and all discussion should always be allowed. It is not private, it is general knowledge and worldwide conversation. Hence, it does no harm in releasing all letters in their entirety. If you demand case-related specifics, then we can go line by line and extract the relevant items, certainly based on the recent ruling allowing exhibits of peacefulness and nonviolent pertinent traits, as well as a gentleness as requested. So it sounds like, I mean, you know, they're talking about like character evidence and things like that, so he's maybe hinting at that. If the prosecution is to argue that the for letter and the what do we as a world need to fix letter blew from the post office across the road under the bush, one must note that every line is about gentleness, peacefulness, and nonviolent caring for humanity and our fellow man, and thus should be admitted in their entirety, saying there is no mention at all of the victim, poor pitiful Trump at all. How does one suggest they only wish to introduce the envelope and not the contents? It does not show the gentleness, peacefulness, and nonviolence. It is absurd. And I personally think any jury would be offended and extremely mad not to be given all the evidence, just because it does not suit the Trump DOJ need. Every single line in the for letter speaks to caring, the pertinent trait. He says, quote, maybe this is in the letter, Iranian citizens, Ukrainian people, citizens of China, North Korean, Palestinian people, Vietnam, Cameroon, Sudan, its children, Russia, Belarus, Taiwan, poor US people, Indian farmers, and more. If the judge demands recent and current data on character, how much more fresh and recent does one get? The ink is not even yet dry. The second note, what do we as a world need need to fix likewise is all peaceful. He's like, my letters are peaceful. I'm talking about the poor people, poor kids. All I talk about is love and tenderness. And so those letters should be admitted for the jury to read and to understand essentially who I am. And like, his character is not on trial. Like, it's not relevant to this. Like, no one cares if you like care about global issues. It's not relevant to your prosecution. You don't just get to submit a bunch of stuff to puff yourself up. It's got to be relevant and helpful to the tribunal. The Dear World letter is the most stale. If the prosecution demands page 1, they should also add all of the other pages. The last page, number 12, which plainly states on line 4, the thought to, quote, shred his plane. Does the defense in every case have to argue to admit obvious evidence? That's bizarre. You may need to explain to me how an airplane and a golf course are remotely related, please. If you would like to dissect the letter to eliminate all negative words about Trump to protect his fragile childish ego, coddle that child. Just skip to page 2, line 12, and the common people of China through page 3, the struggling kid, and making everyone's lines better, like I'm doing a good job, and stop at line 12. Pick up back up on page 7, and then he's like, talk about this stuff. None of the letters have any usefulness now. The world is totally F. And who will respond to take back our presidency and democracy? Who? Ryan Routh says, Judge, I beg of you to please subpoena every single person that had something negative to say about Ryan Routh. Oh gosh, we've said that. And put them on the stand under oath, and let's see who lies. The more the FBI, I want to cut through all the BS and tell me to my face if I have ever wronged anyone. I say no. Bring it, please. Call them all, please. All of my exhibits speak only to peacefulness, nonviolence, and gentleness as a pertinent trait and should be admitted, please. From Ryan Routh. All right, so this is about what we expected. Okay, representing yourself is not a good idea, especially this dude's got like multiple felonies, been through this before, and probably has a lot of confidence in his abilities that is unfounded. Now, the DOJ, they're actually prosecuting him, so he can send his little screeds, but they've got a whole witness list here and a bunch of people. He wants the FBI to come in? Well, they might. We got Agent 1 here, FBI, Palm Beach, another FBI, forensic examiner, Secret Service is coming in. Somebody named Tracy's going to be here. Sheriff's office, all ATF is in the house. More Palm Beach, bunch of other people, other witnesses. Yeah, they're stacked. Okay, so the trial is stacked. So this one came out yesterday, and she granted some additional requests of Ryan Routh. So the attorneys who are on standby, they can use laptops. They're not going to get a locked room. The standby counsel wanted a locked room. She said no. Judge said you can look at all of the normal attorney conference rooms, but your request for a locked room is denied. And this one also came out very recently. She says, this is my response to Ryan Routh's some of his motions. Says the request to seal all defense witnesses is denied. He wants an indefinite seal on the identity of the defense witnesses, but otherwise we'll grant it for now. Now, we're going to make these things public. We got them today. The request for exhibits is granted, but the United States has already given you all the documents. The request for printer access is denied as moot. You already got it. The statement in the motion regarding access to discovery is also moot, saying, Routh, you've had access to all the discovery, and if you need anything in particular, standby counsel is on standby. And the motion for office supplies is also denied as moot. The court has given him paper copies of all public filings, including those issued before termination. He's been provided with all discovery. He's got a computer and a printer. It is thus unclear what is unresolved. What else does he want? We've given him everything. And finally, he wants fees and expenses for these other doctors. And those are granted in part and denied in part, saying these doctors are not permitted to testify as experts. In the instant motion, it's therefore denied as to these others, but the motion is granted as to McClay, the only expert for whom payment is appropriate. And so he might have an expert witness, which will be wild to watch him use. So that is the latest. Now, what went down today at pretrial came out from Priscilla DeGregory over at the New York Post. She says that Routh must wear professional business attire and will be allowed to address the panelists from the podium when he questions the witnesses. He'll also be assigned court-appointed lawyers who may help if needed. The judge said today, if you make any sudden movements, marshals will take decisive and quick action to respond. Okay, so you better be careful. Her instructions came after she previously allowed a gun and ammunition to come into the courtroom. It's going to be a disabled semi-automatic rifle and empty magazines, 20 live rounds, and 40 shotgun shells. Now, Cannon said FBI agents must at all times be in control of the items, and she said these items will not be left unattended at any time during our trial. We got opening statements September 11th, 12 jurors, 4 alternates are on the docket. Trial's expected to take about 4 weeks. Cannon also granted his request to represent himself. She says, I strongly urge you not to make this decision. Like, do not do this. He's like, I'm doing it. Last week said he can't see certain classified documents because the feds explained to her it would cause serious damage and exceptional exceptionally grave damages to the national security of the United States. What the heck? So it's got to be some foreign power who's behind him. Now, Routh, who has been cooling his heels in Miami lockup, made a bunch of bizarre requests. We read through them. And if he's convicted, might be looking at life in prison. So, strange new trial strategy. Attempt to try to subpoena President Trump and kind of just sending in ranty screeds. But trial right around the corner, my friends. We'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do.